talked about passion for what you do, and the employees kind of decide through passion what they want to talk about and what they want to sell, and what they want to talk about, what they want to sell, what they're passionate about comes through. It's an honest conversation, and from a business side, it sells things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a nice marriage of passion and business.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Ben and Sway Show. We've got a special guest here, Greg Britton with Wheel Sport. Many of you in the Spokane area probably have heard the name Wheel Sport. Maybe you're a customer of theirs. But we're going to talk a little bit today about what's going on with Wheel Sport, talk a little bit about biking, and what trends we see out there. So Greg, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Wheel Sport.
Well, what a lot of people call a bike lifer.
Mm-hmm.
Started in the business, bicycle business at 13, so more than just a few years ago.
Wow.
And a family store in California. So my family was into cycling. We decided, my brother worked at a shop that was up for sale. He mentioned it to my dad, hey, this shop's for sale. And I thought, well, that's cool, but he won't be interested, and he was. We looked at it. Of course, I'm 13. I say we, like I had something to do with it. And my dad was interested. He was going to retire from teaching, and he looked at it and said, you know what? Why don't we just start our own? And so that was in San Jose in 1980, and did that for 18 years in San Jose, and then we closed that up. Kind of had our run. And my wife and I and one-year-old daughter at the time moved to Spokane in '98, and I had every intention of opening a shop here until I experienced the winter. In San Jose, the business was 12 months. You know, in January, we'd get a little rain and people would snivel and say, I can't ride when it's raining, and that lasted a few weeks, and then we were back at it. So I had every intention of opening a store here until, like I said, I went through the winters. So I just worked for some local shops in Spokane, was getting a feel for the business. Still kind of thought maybe I'll do it, but decided that really wasn't the direction I wanted to go. I actually did leave the business for a while, pursued other things. After the almighty dollar, it's hard to make much money in the bike business. Yeah. So I had other opportunities. I'd always been in sales. So I went and explored sales opportunities that were more fruitful in terms of financial, but they weren't very rewarding. I was making a lot of money and miserable, which I know a lot of people have had that experience. Yeah. So I was persuaded to come back 2 years ago when the Wheel Sport opportunity opened up. Wheel Sport was started in '72 in Spokane. And in 2017, in May, it was bought by Mark and Sarah Newport, who own it now, and that's when I came in. When they took over as owners, we had a mutual friend introduce us, and I was looking to get back in the bike world, trying to figure out how I can do it and make a living. Yeah. It's like, I know I love this business, but I need to make a living. How do I do both? And it was a frequent discussion at home. My wife's, you're miserable, you love the bike business. Yeah, I do, but we got to pay the bills. Yeah. And it was just perfect time, one of those perfect timing things where a GM role came up for a multi-store. One of the most intriguing things is Mark and Sarah have never been in the bike business. They've never owned a retail business. And if I was to come back, I didn't want to come back into the bike business as I knew it with people who have been doing it forever. I wanted to learn. So I met Mark, who is a CFO of a company that has zero to do with the bike world. That's his real job. And I was intrigued by what he knew and what he shared with me, and said I can learn a lot. It was kind of a selfish move, like so many decisions are. I think I can learn a ton from this guy. I'm going to come work for him and learn what he has to teach me, and see if I can be successful. Because in our 18 years that we did it at home in San Jose, 18 years is a long time in that business. So you can say, wow, that's great, that was successful. Well, depends on how you define it. We didn't make any money. Yeah. We had a lot of fun. We supported some families, but we didn't have anything to show for it money-wise. Yeah. My parents who owned it never took a dollar out. They didn't pay themselves a wage, which is the standard bike shop thing. Yeah. So, a lot of businesses, actually. Yeah. So, and bike shops have a habit of being hobbies, not businesses. There's very few shop owners that could tell you their numbers or talk about financial metrics with any confidence or any desire to even talk about it.
Yeah.
They just figure, I love biking, I treat people right, I'll make money.
Yeah.
And then the reality hits that those first two things are necessary and great, and they will help,
Yeah.
but they don't translate.
It's
to
probably why you
profitability.
see, wouldn't you say, a lot of the bike sales avenues in a place that has Four Seasons matching up with skis, and so you can do Four
Yeah.
Seasons. Yeah, I've got friends up in Colville that run Clark's All Sports, and they've got specialized bikes up there and do a nice job with the bikes. But again, this time of year it starts to tail off a little bit, and then people are into skis and snowboards, and so it's a tough thing. And I think that's there's the business side of it and then the passion, right?
Right.
And I think that it's great to have a passion, and you have to have that in order to really truly be successful. But you also have to meet the numbers, and sometimes that's a harsh reality for folks.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about Wheel Sport has a number of locations.
4.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about each one. What's common in all the Wheel Sport stores, and what's different about each one?
Well, we can start with what we call Recyclery today, which was the original location on Division that opened in '72. It's in the same building, which is pretty unique to be in one building that long. It feels like it was started that long when you walk in. It's got creaky floors, and it's really eclectic and very cool. The people that work there may argue that it's hot, it's cold,
Yeah.
it's smelly, but it's got a lot of character. The Recyclery was kind of reborn a couple years ago. One of the ideas Mark had, and we talked about doing something different. And one of the things in the bike world, you gotta have a passion. I agree, but you gotta, for it to be sustainable, you gotta look at the community. What's the community need from us, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like an obvious question, but we saw a need for quality used bikes. So, yeah, there's eBay, there's Craigslist, there's garage sales, but what if we brought that in-house and refurbished them and offered a certified pre-owned, kind of like the car business,
Yeah.
warranty, and so we said, is that valuable to the community? And we said, yeah, people need that. A lot of people want to ride nice stuff. They can't afford to buy new.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to trade up, trade in. So Recyclery was born a couple of years ago, and that's doing well. So it's our used, refurbished, and then it's also what we call our outlet store, where when we buy some bulk buys or we have distressed merchandise at the other 3 stores, it goes there and gets marked down. So when you walk into Recyclery, pretty much everything in there is on sale or reduced or some sort of bargain.
And then you talk about people trading up. I know that I know enough to be dangerous in the bike world, but is it something too where people bring in their stuff and they upgrade the components of the bike? Because it seems like there are a lot of bikes where maybe the frame is common, but the rest of it isn't upgraded, or you could order another upgraded one, but it's going to be up here.
Right.
You could get in and then maybe upgrade later. And I've seen people do that. Some do it on their own. Is that something else that the Recyclery does? Or
Yeah, and kind of, one of the things that happened at Recyclery that we didn't necessarily think of right out of the gate is when a bike comes in to be potentially traded in or sold to us. So we trade and we actually purchase. One of the things we found that it's a lot, it can parallel, I think, to the car or even somebody selling their home. They have a lot of pride in. They may or may not. The bike may have a story.
Yeah.
It may be very personal to them. So one of the things we knew would be a challenge is when we offer money, let's not offend them, but we have to make money on it. So we have to buy it, refurbish it, and sell it for a profit.
Yeah.
So one of the ways in which we do that, and this is getting to your question hopefully, is we write up a service order, a work order. This is what we're going to do to get it sellable, and we share it with them. And what we found was that was a really neat way to say, if you're not interested in trading it in or you're not sure, here's what it needs.
Yeah.
And so maybe we just do this and you keep it. Because now we know what it is to get it back. Or then they talk about what they want and go, oh, well, we can do that. Like you said, upgrade. We can do that to that bike. Here's what it looks like. So it's kind of a win no matter what. We either come out and they say, that's all great, but I still want to trade it in. Great. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know I could do that. Let's do that and fix it. Great. So
Are there
you know,
some
one way or
people-
the other, there's some benefit to it.
Are there some people you said bikes can have sentimental value?
Right.
Do you find where you do that and somebody goes, you know what, I'm so glad to sell it here because I know that's going to go live a new life and going to be, that bike is going to move on? Is that a thing for people?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, yeah, maybe there is some of that. It's going to a good home, or it's gonna continue its life and give some joy or something to someone else.
Yeah.
Sure. I think there's some of
Let's
that.
touch base on some of the other Wheel Sport locations.
So I'll pop kind of the other side. The newest one is the North Store, just north of the Y on Highway 2, and that one is a year and a half, a little over a year old. It was July of 2018. We opened that store. So we bought the building. So we own that building. It was an old car repair, Northgate Auto, I think it was called. And it was pretty cool because it has the big roll-up doors where they service the cars. So we kept one of the roll-ups. We put glass in, but we refurbished it. It's a freestanding building. So one of the ideas in that store, it's got the super high ceilings. It's just a big shell. So it's a nice open field. We're able to do a lot of different displays with product up high. We have bikes three tiered high. We have bikes hanging from the ceiling. So that was that store. We actually built in a cafe in terms of plumbing, electrical, and everything. We were going to put a cafe in it, which when we get to our south store, we have a cafe in that store, which makes it unique. But the north was kind of built to maybe have that someday, and the idea there is to introduce lifestyle and cycling and have another reason for people to come through the door.
Yeah.
So the North Store is the newest and kind of the vision. It's a little smaller. That was our thing too, a little smaller footprint. We wanted to see what that would look like, and some of our suppliers are getting better about timely availability of products, so we don't have to carry it all. We can get it quickly.
Yeah.
Another store is out in the valley. That one's been around a long time. It's our, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if the south of the valley is older, but both have been around a long time. The valley's been in the same spot a lot longer, and that's out on Sullivan, just south of the Highway 90. And that store, they all kind of have their own personalities. We got used. The North Store, that team's kind of into what they call gravel riding, which is kind of a mixture of road and mountain. It's basically a road bike, but on gravel surfaces to get away from cars, which is becoming bike packing. You've heard bike packing is becoming big. The Valley Store is really our mountain bike store. And what happens is, well, how do you choose? The used bike store, we kind of chose what it is, but the other ones, the community kind of chooses what it is, and more than anything, the employees choose what it is. We talked about passion for what you do, and the employees kind of decide through passion what they want to talk about and what they want to sell, and what they want to talk about, what they want to sell, what they're passionate about comes through. It's an honest conversation, and from a business side, it sells things. So it's really a nice marriage of passion and business, and the Valley Store definitely has the mountain bike, a little more adrenaline out there.
Yeah.
Some great riders. The manager of that store comes from the car business, a long time in the car business. So that store, medium-sized, mountain, kind of typical bike shop looking. I guess that sounds obvious to me. It may not to others. And then the South Store is what we call our flagship. It's at 30th and Grand. That store is our biggest. The recyclery is big too. It's just really chopped up. The South Store has been around a long time. It went through a major remodel a little over a year ago, and the catalyst was to put in a cafe and see what that would do to the business. So the bike business has a real approachability problem. Bike shops, like a lot of specialty retail, are intimidating to people. They don't want to go in and talk to the 30-something-year-old guy with the kid with the beard and the tattoos and talk. I don't want to talk to that guy about bikes. I want to ride, and that's kind of the approachability thing we talk about is a real problem for bike shops. So we said, well, what if we put a cafe in it and did some different menu items, and it was Sarah Newport, one of the owners, that's her baby, and phenomenal job with setting it up. Took a long time to think about what it would be, and it's really her thing. I'm not the GM of that particular part of the business, so I can't speak too intelligently about it, but it really is interesting. It brings in On average, through the tracking, we've done about 1,500 people a month.
Wow.
Through that door. They're connected, but it does have a separate entrance, but you can get to it either way. It doesn't really matter. But what we're seeing is the traffic flow in there from the cafe has changed the whole dynamic of the store. It's completely different. It's by far the busiest. It has the widest spread of age of customers, tons of kids, the whole gamut. It's plopped right in the middle of the neighborhood, which helps.
Has it translated into sales?
The cafe piece.
What sales for the bike shop? I mean,
right,
you've seen
it has the cafe
traffic,
business. Yeah. Well, so that was the experiment, right? And when we designed North and we were going to put it there, Mark smartly said, you know what? If we put it in North, having it never been a store, we won't know what the change was.
Yeah.
So let's put it in South, even though we don't own that building, and a big remodel is interesting in a building you don't own. But it was, let's see what it does to an existing business. So to answer your question, it has, but not to the degree we thought it would. And really we're trying to make it an organic thing where we really haven't cross-promoted too much. I mean, they're in the same building, but they do have different staff. Mm-hmm. They have different marketing platforms. They coexist in space, but really they are different. And we just kind of wanted to see naturally what would happen. Mm-hmm. And we're still trying to figure it out. It opened in January of this year, mm-hmm. So it's coming. It'll be coming up on a year, and it's increased traffic. It's increased traffic flow to the bike shop side. Has it increased sales? The numbers say no. Amazingly, mm-hmm. It really hasn't, and we're scratching our heads a little, but we're also not in a panic to say it failed.
It does seem like something that would take a little time, and you've got to get cafe business off the ground, and then you've got to maintain bike business. There does seem to be, having the same ownership, cross-promotional marketing is going to be something that
absolutely
you've got a lot of control over. So I think it's a fascinating test to see how that'll go, and I think I could see it really being successful, especially if you do well in both.
Yeah, it definitely helped overcome the approachability problem of bike shops. I think there's, how many of those 1,500 people were already customers, I don't know. I know there's a lot of new faces. There's a lot more families, and I know they come into that side, and we'll see them migrate over and look around. Mm-hmm. So it's happening, and when you're in the cafe, I think the comfort level of, okay, I feel good, I've made my order, I've already, into the comfort level to come into the bike shop side and take a peek is much more inviting than I'm walking through the bike shop door, and I better have something intelligent to say, or I'm going to look like an idiot, which is interesting what people are afraid of. We consider ourselves very approachable. We encourage the non-cyclists to come in and let's just talk about fun and bikes and riding and having a good time, but you don't know that until you get through the door, right?
Yeah, I think that, with most things too, they get nuanced. You talk to somebody that's got mediocre experience, they start naming off different names of brands and types of bikes, and if you don't know, you just sort of kind of, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm doing here.
Right.
I could see how people, and that approachability with the cafe, it makes a lot of sense. I've seen that before. There's a furniture store up in Colville that's got a coffee shop that's independent but has an open door to the furniture store. Mm-hmm. And so you get your coffee and walk through the furniture store. I think it would be interesting too to track what does that new entrant to the store sales cycle look like, because I think maybe it's been successful, but it takes 3 or 4 times for somebody to come in there and feel comfortable enough to make a buying decision on something that prior to coming in they've never really thought about.
I agree, and it's trackable. We just haven't put the effort in yet to it still seems like it's new enough to where we're letting it simmer.
So let's talk a little bit to the novice bicyclist mm-hmm. that's watching this. You talked about the gravel riding, and so we've got mountain bikes, road bikes, and now there's this kind of intermediate path. There's bikes that have suspension on them. There's bikes that are for racing. So talk a little bit about that, and maybe some of the brands that you guys represent.
Yeah, if we go back, and when I started in 1980, believe it or not, the mountain bike didn't exist yet. It was kind of being born in the hills of the Bay Area, which is where we were. Mm-hmm. We were in South Bay, and it was coming to be, but there wasn't a production one yet. And the first company to ever do a production mountain bike was Specialized, and We are a Specialized dealer. That's our main brand. That company has a unique history. Mike Sinyard started Specialized out of his Volkswagen bus, and he was importing mainly Campanolo parts out of Italy and bringing them into the U.S. and selling them around in his van. So he was an importer of high-end, Campanolo's a high-end road componentry group out of Italy. And so it's kind of a unique and really cool story. Actually, I'm leaving tomorrow morning to go to a dealer event at Specialized. They're in Morgan Hill, California. Mike Sinyard, not too long after driving around in his van, and that's when I met him, bought this building in Morgan Hill that he's still in, and he still owns Specialized, which is one of the biggest bike companies in the world.
Yeah.
It's owned by an individual.
That's a cool story.
It's pretty unique. He'll be there. I'll see him once every 10 years, and he immediately knows who I am. It's one of the knows my name and remembers conversations, and so probably to his credit, one reason he's so successful. But back in the day in 1980, we were mainly BMX, over some road, mountain bikes were born, and that just re-energized the business. Now we were fairly new still at that time, so to say re-energized, we were just getting going, but nothing was progressing in the technology in bikes that quickly.
Yeah.
Mountain bikes has spurred this whole thing, and there was a lot of opposition from traditional riders, and trail access was a huge deal. In San Jose, the equestrian riders just fought to keep mountain bikes off the trails, and that's a whole nother topic. But as we know, mountain bikes prevailed. They're the biggest selling segment of the bike world. They have been for a long time. What's come on recently is gravel bikes. And what's a gravel bike? Or bike packing? Like a lot of definitions, it's pretty loose. But basically, it's you take a road bike and modify it. Road bike meaning usually thinner tire, drop handlebars, the traditional handlebar. And basically, gravel was a way to do road biking away from traffic. And a lot of people don't want to ride the roads, and with distracted driving.
Yeah.
It's a little risky out there.
Oh, it's a problem.
And there's more and more congestion. Roads are designed for cars for the most part, and cyclists. It is, so to want to say I love road riding in terms of the bike style, the efficiency of that type of riding, but I want to get away from the car, so gravel's kind of boring. And there's another part of something that was similar already called cyclocross, which takes kind of a road bike and races it on a dirt circuit. And that had been around a long time, cyclocross. Yeah. So really, you take a cyclocross bike and a road bike and marry them. That's kind of what a gravel bike is. It's a little loose definition, and now the gravel became, bike packing. It's like, I want a backpack, but on a bike, I can go further, see more stuff, but I want to carry all my stuff. So that's been a big growth. But the biggest growth by far lately for the whole industry is electric bikes, e-bikes, and that's where we see, in my opinion, the biggest thing to get more people on bikes since I've started, including mountain bikes, is e-bikes. I think it's bigger than mountain bikes, or to get more people on bikes that aren't riding.
One of our prayer guests was Mayor David Condon, and I had the privilege of being invited on a trip that he kind of started, but was sponsored by a group that does these Scandinavian tours, and it was a sustainable city tour, and it was great because we had Ben Stuckert was on the trip. It was it was nonpartisan. It was really cool. And we went to Copenhagen.
Right.
And Copenhagen is, from a cycling standpoint, is mind-blowing.
Right.
What was really mind-blowing, and you may appreciate this, and may already know this, is you see cyclists here, and typically they're passionate, so they're on incredible bikes, right? They're on multi-$1,000 setups.
Right.
These were like some variation of an old beach cruiser.
Right.
And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them.
They all look the same.
They all look the same. And there were a few nice bikes. And when we talk to the people there, they're like, well, nobody wants their bike stolen. And if they do get it stolen, they don't want to worry about it. So these are all $200, $300, $400, $500 bikes. And some of them have been used very well and frequently. You could stay at a hotel and rent a bike really simply. And they have some sort of, what was really interesting is Matthew Collins and I were riding together. Matthew's with Uptick Studios. And we go, did the gears just change? It's got like some sort of centrifugal gearing system in there. It's like 2 or 3 gears, but In Copenhagen, everything is flat. Like
Right.
the elevation change might be 100 feet for everything you'd ride. But 59% of all their commutes in the city are by cycle.
Amazing. Yeah.
They have these public squares that used to be parking lots that now are sea of bikes that are parked everywhere.
Maybe
But
parking garages they built
yeah,
bike specific.
yeah,
A whole
yeah.
parking structure.
The most impressive thing is the layout.
Right.
So, and you probably know this, but not many people do, and I'm just maddened by the way that it's done here in the U.S. And most countries outside of a few spaces in Scandinavia and other parts of Europe. But what they do is they have the traffic where the cars are,
Mm-hmm.
then they put the parking,
Mm-hmm.
then they put half a curb height, and then usually it's a paved surface, and that's the bike and it's going this way. They did the same thing on the other side, and then another half a curb up to a pedestrian walkway.
Mm.
So they've separated, and the way they told us, we want hard, like the cars, a hard surface between the cars and the squishy parts, which are people.
Right.
And you see women in dresses. You see everybody has their headphones on, which is pretty interesting, riding their bikes through there. But they have the street lights all tied to it. They have the stop line, especially for right-hand turning traffic, one car back. So the bicyclists are all in front of the cars.
I didn't
So
know that
they
part.
can't see them, or they can't run into them without seeing them. I mean,
Right.
they would see them.
Right.
The
Not in
lights
a blind spot there.
always go for the bikes first,
Right. Oh. Yeah.
and then the cars. So if you're cycling through town, they have figured out how you will hit one or no lights depending on the speed that you pedal. So you'll be able to cycle for many, many, many blocks unimpeded by a light. Cars, it's not timed that way. They wanted to incentivize the cars to be away. But what it's done is removed a lot of the traffic. And so the car traffic's actually improved with the cycle traffic, which is fascinating. I don't think every city is well designed that way. And then you counterimpose that with something like Seattle or Portland, where they've really done, I think, a good job trying to reinfuse cycling into the city. But there's so many conflicts because I don't think it's been incredibly well thought out. So now you have cyclists and cars, and there's some conflicts there. I was part of one in a lift one day where a guy with a daughter on the back of his bike actually hit the lift car, and I didn't even see what the lift guy might have done, but it's just this animus that's kind of created because we're trying to share the same space.
Right.
And I hope that cities take a page out of that Copenhagen, Denmark book and start doing things. Like one of the things I talked to Americanen about is we got the Maple Street Bridge route, and as you get up north and you get to country homes, we got these new paved one-way traffic this way, the other way, and then a bike path, and then the parking. Why couldn't we flip those and go back to a situation where now it's much safer? I mean, if all you have is a parked car door to deal with, that's a little bit safer than having to deal with people that are, even though they're not supposed to, they're distracted driving, as you mentioned. So I think we have a lot of growth opportunities to design our cities better. And one of the things I've talked to a few people about in Seattle, I spent a lot of time there, is you look at the monorail system. The whole idea there, even though it was short, was to get that train or that vehicle off the surface. What if we did something similar, and my other business is mass timber, it's lightweight.
Mm-hmm.
What if we built some sort of elevated deckway or a almost freeway for bikes that was off the street, that now people that aren't gung-ho about biking, because really all you have is the really enthusiasts doing it because they're taking it very seriously. Whereas a regular guy that would just go out and grab a bike, as you said, a lot of people are afraid of the traffic. They want to go and get on a gravel bike. I think there's a lot that we need to do to incentivize biking, not only in Spokane, but other places where we really think about how to separate the car and the cyclist. Because the last thing you want to do is have conflict.
Right.
And then people aren't going to get on a bike because they're scared. And cars somehow have this feeling towards cyclists that they shouldn't have. Because realistically, we're all real similar. So those of us that are cycling out there, we have cars and we want to be able to drive and be safe.
You know, you can talk about infrastructure and roads built for transportation and people, or you can talk about what we do is building for cars,
Yeah.
which have people in them,
Yeah.
but they're not built for people, or, you know, they're built for cars. And yeah, it's just, you know, I guess in Denmark, they use them for transport. It's a mode of transportation. It's the second car. It's their only transportation. You probably saw that. That allows people who are commuting. They multiple people on the bike. And, you know, here a bike's a toy still. Ultimately, I mean, yeah, there's some people that commute and they use it as their car. We have a one of our guys, Jim, who's been with us forever. That Jim's 50 years old and has never driven a car.
Wow.
He commutes everywhere on his bike. Yeah, in Spokane in the winter. And he's worked for us forever, and he gets there in the winter and usually rides his bike or public transportation or something. He's, of course, that's unusual.
Yeah, he's the exception.
Until we look at bikes as a viable form of transportation, you know, you could say, you know, better for the environment or better for your health, or all sorts of things. It's never going to happen. You know, and it's a lot, and it's that infrastructure you talk about, like the elevator. That's awesome, but man, trying to get people to buy into that, you know, financially and mentally.
I think we need.
But I'm all for it.
We need something at, like the highway traffic system. You know, in the 50s we built the interstate highway system. I think we need something like that for cycling. I recently drove to Wenatchee and back, and I was on Highway 2, and you come up out of the river valley there, and it's steep and windy, and there's cyclists on the road, and I do triathlons and I cycle, not as much as some, but more than others. And so I'm very cognizant of the cyclists. And there's just not a lot of room there.
Right.
And some people aren't so cognizant, or they're distracted, or they're, you know, aggravated. And I also know that some cyclists don't do any favors. Like some of them, I see them come way out into the lane of traffic.
Oh, absolutely.
And so somebody doesn't understand, they might go, you know, and then they disparagingly look at cyclists. And I think we all have, as cyclists and as drivers, some responsibility to try to make it better.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of cyclists that carry a lot of blame. I mean, they blow through stop signs, stop lights. Their argument is, you know, the light won't change. It's not made for me, but we're never going to get it there if you don't respect the rules of the road. So it is, you know, it can create a backup of cars because there isn't enough room. So who's to blame? We're trying to, you know, you talk about share the road. Sharing the road's a great idea, and we all need to watch out for each other, obviously. But when it's not designed for it, it's a tough thing. And everybody, you know, when people just take a breath and slow down, and everybody kind of knows that we're all there trying to get somewhere and do this, you know, that's great. But
we should share it.
The design's so poor, it's tough.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how much your intentions are good, it's not built to do what we're trying to do. But, you know, you talk about the highway, and you know, one thing I was really happy about, the North-South Freeway, what they call the Children of the Sun Trail, which runs along, which is a pedestrian cycling path they're building with the highway.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. I'm on it all the time. I live up north, and I use that to commute, and I can't wait till it goes further. But I'm on that 2-3 times a week, and I'm really impressed that it's nice to see that we spent the money, the effort, the time, because that added a lot of cost.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was neat to see that Spokane is, you know, given that some thought there.
Let's talk, Greg, if we can, for a minute about social media and the impact it has on a business like Wheel Sport. Like being able to share bikes, ideas, maybe even some action of people on bikes that you guys are carrying. Have you guys utilized that, looked at that? Is that something that's a big part of your marketing and sales outreach strategy going forward?
Well, this is a part where it gets a little sketchy for me. I just don't. It's 100% necessary. You know, in my role, I have so much other stuff going on that we've been lucky enough to bring in a marketing person, and so I guess we believe in it. It's that it's a necessity to the point where we're paying a full-time person to just market. You take the number of bike shops in the country that have a full-time dedicated marketing person on staff, and I'd be surprised if it's over 1%.
Yeah.
Could be up as much as 5, but maybe multi-location stores like us. So we believe that it's necessary, that you have to, and social media is far and away the most efficient, effective probably way to get to people, and so we do a lot. I don't, but Wheel Sport does a bunch of social media stuff, and it creates that engagement, and I think it helps that approachability problem.
Yeah.
That well, it depends on what the message is. If your social media is all about we're super high end, we only want pro cyclists to come in, then that's what you'll get.
Right.
For us, it's how do we get our whole business model is the cycling community in Spokane or the country is pretty small compared to population. We can go after them and ask them to be our customers, which is the typical bike shop method of marketing. Mm-hmm. You're a cyclist, come be our customer because of A, B, and C. Yeah. We look at the other piece of the pie, which is the huge piece, and say these people don't ride, or they're not cyclists, and you got to define what that means even. But how do we get them on a bike? Because bikes are super cool, and that goes back to my e-bike thing partially, but that's why we go down that road. But that's our marketing effort. Is bikes are a ton of fun. They can be transportation. So we talk about conversations like that to come in and see us, and let's talk about what that looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the beauty is most kids learn how to ride a bike.
Right.
So you have that connection, that anchored connection back to when they're kids. But
even that's dwindled, though. I think.
I think you're right.
If you look at schools and the amount of bikes and that kids ride to school, it's gone way down from where it used to be. I think part of that's road safety. Part of it's just lack of interest. Yeah. So what was ingrained so young? If I take myself, I was rode everywhere as a kid. Yeah. My daughter, zero interest. I'm in the bike business, zero interest. Yeah. She rides now. She lives in Kirkland and commutes. Ironically now, she commutes to work every day on bike. She's a few miles from work, but as a kid, so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things too. For me, I didn't ride a bike as an adult for a long time, from probably my late teens to into my 30s, and then I wanted to ride the mountain bike a little bit, so I kind of got into that. So when you talk about being intimidated, as somebody who does a lot of research on things before I buy something, it was still a little intimidating because man, it's like, okay, well, I thought a bike would be $200-300 or something like I saw at Walmart or something like that.
Sure.
Then to learn the vast difference of what's out there, it's pretty substantial.
Got about 2 minutes, guys.
Okay. So it's interesting to learn about all the aspects of the bike, and I think your guys' approach is right. And how do you get somebody in the door to kind of relight that passion? And I think you forget how fun a bike is until you've been on one in a long time.
Yeah, if you look at our, so we went through this exercise of a why statement like so many businesses do, and it starts with remember when you were a child and the freedom and joy you felt riding a bike. That's how it starts, and that's really the basis of everything we do. Is that was a really fun thing we used to do. Why don't we do it now? Or how do we re-engage? And that's the passion that brings us there every day, because we still have that. We want to share it. We want to get more people involved with it. How can we do that is kind of how we approach our business and why we're there.
So is the best way for people watching this that want to go in and visit Wheel Sport just to pick a location and come in? Is there somewhere online too that you have them go?
Wheelsportbikes.com. Is the website, and there's a lot of good info there, and there's this calendar of events of the rides we do is group rides and clinics and all. But yeah, I think the best way is pick the shop that's closest to your house, between the 4 locations we kind of cover, Spokane Valley, and just pop in and know you'll be greeted by a friendly face and just have a conversation and tell them what, hey, I haven't ridden a bike in a long time, I'm thinking about, whatever the conversation is, they'll be welcoming and try to guide you down and get you what you need to get out there and enjoy it again.
Well, that's great. Hey, Greg, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
Had a lot of fun talking about it. I learned a lot and enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on.